Hello, everybody. My name is Amol Patel. You're watching the Smoking Hot Coffee Show, where every day, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we talk to startup founders. I'm joined with,
Hey guys, I'm Jeff Pelton down here in San Diego.
and today we have an amazing interview with Eric from Swiggle.com. Swiggle.com has innovated in the presence technology space, where if you have a remote team, you've got multiple team members around the world, or even in the same office. In fact, this is a good way to communicate, and we found some really interesting ironies where people are in the same office but they're more comfortable sharing and discussing topics when they're in front of their computer. Jeff, that was one of the craziest stuff that I ever heard about all these presence technologies. So tell us more, Jeff, about Squiggle.
Yeah, so we get a better explanation from Eric of how Squiggle works exactly, but it's a very cutting-edge video conferencing technology that really the power is the presence notification. So you can leave this on all day long and be in communication with your team in a pervasive, a way that doesn't intrude on your privacy too much. So they've really innovated and been working on feature sets to help that behavior. To get people using this, because as we talk about this, technology has kind of been around for a while. I think it comes down to getting people to use it and integrating it into their workflow.
Yeah, and so, like I said earlier, is one of the surprising benefits is people that have offices that are all working together. Sometimes it's more efficient to be in front of your computer, especially if you do programming or design work or whatever, so you can share what you're working on and get the other team members looking at it and commenting real time over video, over screen sharing. In fact, I think screen sharing is a big feature that they're working on next. Eric briefly goes over how they came up with the idea, how he found his co-founders, how he was able to raise money through AngelList. Talked about some techniques there. If you're a startup founder, if you got an idea, you want to build something, there's a great interview. You're going to learn a ton from this interview. Jeff?
Yeah. These guys are on a roll. They're really just killing it in every department. I think the product is just so exciting, using this really cutting edge stuff, and like you said, people are using it in ways you might not have expected. So it's even more powerful because putting this tool in their hands, you don't even know how it's going to change their lives.
Yeah,
it's really great that they're working on this.
Yeah, it's really exciting stuff, and so please check it out. And for those of your friends that may not know about us, please share the link, SmokingHotCoffee.com. We are always interested in getting emails at info@SmokingHotCoffee.com. Jeff?
Yep, and you guys can subscribe to us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, basically anywhere you want. You can find all of those links on our website under the subscribe link. We really do appreciate it if you tell your friends, send us emails, let us know how we're doing.
Great. So with that, let's cut to our show. Hey, Eric. Thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
So I was saying off camera when I first got to your landing page how excited I was, because I'm a huge fan of sort of presence technologies, like chat and people coming in and off, having like a virtual isometric world where you can see like little avatars. I mean, I'm a big fan of all that shit. And I saw your thing, and you guys are big on the whole presence, and I was telling Jeff, I was like, we got to get this guy on the show. We got to get him on.
Yeah. And we've talked to so many of our guests who many of them say they use things like HipChat, and my stomach just churns a little bit when they say that every time. I feel like the technology hasn't really changed or evolved or done much to improve our lives. So it's great to see products like what you guys are working on. You want to tell us a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, sure. So you can kind of hopefully get an idea of it from just the screenshot of the homepage we have here. But basically, the idea is that we wanted to bring real presence to remote teams, something that, as you guys mentioned, you don't really get with HipChat or with Skype or with Google Hangouts even, stuff like that. But the idea is that this is basically an always-on workroom. So when you log in, you can see that everyone kind of gets a spot on the screen. It sends a black and white snapshot from your camera every 10 seconds. So that's where you get the real presence, so you always know whether or not the person is there. And, it kind of gives you more of a personal connection, right? Because in the office, you can typically see the people you're working with, and you usually lose that over text chat. So with Squiggle, you never lose that. And if you want to go ahead and have a conversation with someone, you just click their picture, and you're immediately brought into full-frame video with audio. And if you'd like to have a group conversation, you just click a few pictures, and now you're in a group conversation. And with one click, you can leave that conversation. So it's really, our main goal was kind of to reduce the friction that comes with having meetings and talking with people online and having to call them, and then they have to respond, and then they never answer and all that stuff. So we've kind of removed all that stuff.
Gotcha. Well, I was listening to the guy behind Stack Overflow, Joel, at Fog Software, Fog Creek, I think it is, Fog Dog. I can't remember.
Joel Spolsky.
Yeah, and he was talking about how physically in the office in Boston, their developers are all there, but then when they have meetings, they literally go all into their individual offices, sit down in front of their laptops or computers, and turn on the Google Hangout, and they do the meetings over Hangouts simply because it's easier to share the screen, it's easier to be more productive than the face-to-face. Have you found these kind of weird, ironics, things in building this?
Yeah, we've actually seen that exact situation you're describing. When we first built this, we have a lot of the founders have a lot of experience working on remote teams, so we naturally kind of came at it with the angle to solve that problem for remote teams. But it turns out that it's a great solution for them, but it's also a great solution for people who work in an office, especially if it's a bigger office where you don't get to actually see the people that you work with.
Okay.
So there's really no reason why you can't use Squiggle in an office. We actually have some customers who use Squiggle, and they have maybe 1 or 2 remote employees, and everyone else is in the office. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so crazy, man.
Yeah. It kind of goes to show you the power of these tools when you empower people with them, the different ways they can use them that you didn't intend for on the outset.
Yeah, and I think the frictionless communication, it just kind of shows you that exists on remote teams, but it also still exists in the office, and there's still a need for a tool like this. So.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So you were trying. The reason why you even built this thing, why you guys, why you left Buffer, was to reduce friction. Let's go into the friction. What specific frictions were you trying to reduce?
Sure. So Tom actually is the one who worked with Buffer.
Oh, okay,
that's
sorry.
actually how I met him. I was a user of Buffer.
Oh, okay.
So Buffer was a remote team. They had from the inception to now, they've had remote workers all over the country, and the founders themselves have traveled around. And so Tom specifically saw a lot of the problems with that, and how difficult it was to keep a company culture and to really have a personal connection with the new people you're hiring, especially the new people.
Yeah.
In my own personal thing, I've done freelance work on remote teams. I've worked for remote teams, where you have 5 people in one office, 5 people in another, and 5 people in another, and a few remote contractors. So pretty much the whole spectrum. And I've seen a lot of the difficulties that come with that. And the other co-founder, Matt, he's got a similar experience to me. Just worked on a lot of remote teams and realizes how difficult it is and how it doesn't really need to be that difficult going forward. We have the tools to make this much more of an appropriate solution than having to pay thousands and thousands of dollars a month for offices.
Gotcha. So I'm going to go into this nitty-gritty a little bit because this is an important piece of the product. So one of the key things that you're trying to reduce is onboarding new employees or onboarding new team members. That's one of the key friction issues that you're running into. What was another one, if you can think off the top of your head?
I think this is something we've yet to really solve. But time zone is always an issue.
Time zone. Yep.
One thing we do is naturally we put the current time in the bottom right of, as you can see, kind of on our homepage in a little demo. Mm-hmm. That's actually really helpful because you always you're never really always mindful of how late it is sometimes on someone else's time zone. Especially Tom, when we were building Squiggle, we were using it ourselves, and he was over in the UK, so he was 8 hours ahead of me over in San Francisco. So I always had to be mindful of the fact that he was about to eat dinner, he was, hanging out at home and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, that's one. Squiggle helps a little bit in that you can kind of see them, so you can see that it's dark out. You can see that they're in their living room, so it helps a lot.
Right.
And also we have the time zone in the bottom right, but there's still something we're trying to come up with better ideas to kind of solve that. Short of like changing the Earth's gravitational pull, I don't think there's too much you can do. It's something you just gotta kind of work around. So.
Right.
Well, tell us the idea of having the black and white images that get taken, would you say, every 10 minutes or so? How big of a feature was that for you guys to kind of unlock the the power of Squiggle?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's actually became like one of the most important features of the product. It's actually every 10 seconds that it updates, and the way we came up with that idea was, naturally we kind of made it by default. We started experimenting with full frame video that was always on. The problem with that was obviously the bandwidth is a nightmare. It just doesn't even really work. Right. Second off, it's kind of intrusive. You have this camera on you at all times, and it's full frame. You can see every single movement that you make.
Right.
It was just way too intrusive, especially being in full frame color. It's just too much.
Yeah.
So then we experimented with lowering the frame rate, which worked a little bit better, but it just kind of made it look choppy. Then we had this idea of making it black and white so it looks more purposeful, and that actually just like clicked. The minute we did that, we were like, this is great. It makes it look like a photo booth. It's kind of nostalgic, it's more flattering, all that stuff, and it just started to kind of click.
Mm-hmm.
Then, we came up with this idea to make it fade from still to still and made it a little more smooth. We experimented with the range of the update. At first, it was like 3 to 4 seconds, and then we kind of extended that from 8 seconds to 10 seconds, and we kind of found a sweet spot there. And there's a lot of cool stuff we're going to do with that going into the future, but for now, that's kind of where we are with it. And we think it's one of the big selling points of the product and something I think we've done really well.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I think it's fairly innovative compared to the other products I've seen.
Cool.
Yeah, so this idea of doing it black and white, doing it 10 seconds, fading from still to still, obviously is a constraint because of the bandwidth, and you also mentioned another constraint, and that is this feeling that you're being spied on, and reducing the, I don't even want to use the word creepiness of it, but just the sense that you don't have your own autonomy because you're being spied on. Did the 10-second interval help with that? What, or maybe there's a better word for it. How would you describe this constraint?
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with using the word creepy, because a lot of people, when you just see it, they kind of get that vibe from it, and kind of our job is to try to reduce that in our marketing push. Naturally, that's kind of what we heard a lot when we first started with this, and we were like, how are we gonna solve this? And going with these black and white previews really helped. We also try to push people to kind of like put it on their secondary laptop if they have a dual monitor system, because it gives you a better, more flattering angle.
Okay.
A lot of people are just worried about getting caught in a weird pose.
Sure.
But the thing is, when you use Swiggle, that's the key. When you use it, you realize that it's not intrusive at all. I leave it on all day, and realize that the other team members aren't really staring at it or anything like that. They just use it to know whether or not you're there, and to kind of get a sense of where you are. Like, I can see whether or not Tom's working at the co-working space, or whether he's at his house or at a coffee shop, and it changes the way that I interact with him. And it's actually extremely helpful in that department. And really, every once in a while we find each other in a funny pose and we take a little screenshot of it, which is actually just kind of adds to the fun of it, and it kind of helps with like team bonding and stuff. So I actually really like that aspect of it.
Gotcha.
But it's a little bit of a turnoff before you actually try it, and then you realize it's not a huge intrusive thing. We're not pushing this as a tool for bosses to keep tabs on their employees, and we don't want to. We're purposely refining our features to where they don't make workers feel like they're being spied on or anything like that, and give them the freedom to kind of like change the way that the camera's working and stuff like that. And that's kind of stuff we're going to kind of refine as we go forward. But
gotcha. I honestly believe this is a big constraint that you guys have to deal with, a big objection, is people feeling spied on, people feeling intrusive. What other feelings, emotional issues, even dysfunctions that you've come across? Like, there's some offices where certain people are just not performing to their best and don't really want to work that hard and feel like, now I'm being spied on. Do you get any of that pushback? One person kind of bullying the other.
Employees that just reject using this sort of thing?
To be honest, we haven't had a lot of that. I think what it comes down to is, at least the way we look at it, is if you're on a team where you're paranoid that your boss is spying on you, you're probably not on a very good team, and you have many other problems other than them trying to spy on you. And that comes down to a personal issue. Maybe it's not going to work for that employee, but a lot of tools aren't going to work for that employee, because a lot of them are going to, bosses can get access to chat logs and HipChat.
I know, but come on, Eric. Last night I went out and I got totally wasted, and I woke up and I don't even feel like being at my best today. I don't want to leave this thing. I don't want to walk in here and have Jeff be like, "Dude, what's wrong with you, man?" Sometimes you just want.
It'd be good for conversation, right?
Could be. It could be. But in all seriousness, though, Eric, there are times when you really don't want to be on. Is there an option to just freeze frame your face, or play a backlog of yesterday?
Well, that's a good question. Right now, we don't have an option for that. We're trying to kind of we realize that that's a concern, and it's like you said, you inevitably have a couple people who are not gonna want to be on camera the way other people are.
Yeah.
We see that it's not a huge issue, but we do want to cater to those people, because it is kind of a barrier to entry that we've been seeing, obviously.
Yeah.
we kind of want to just dip our toes in the water, and that's what we're doing with the black and white preview that updates every 8 seconds.
Okay.
We're experimenting with kind of an audio-only mode, and we're going to come out with. We have a lot of changes to the infrastructure of how the conversations work. We don't want. We're afraid to just let people turn off their camera, because if people just turn it off, they're going to log in and you're going to see a black screen or an avatar, and you completely lose the aspect of presence,
Right.
which is one of the big selling points of the app. So we realize that privacy is still an issue, but we have to walk a fine line to still provide a good user experience for people. We have some really cool ideas on how to do that. I don't want to go too deep into it because a lot of it's going to change over the next couple weeks. But within the next month or two, you guys are going to see huge changes, and I think it's all going to be greatly for the better. So
I got you. No,
And
I'm
I
just
think I think it's great that you're studying this. The behavioral issues and the way people respond. One of the long-running things is the mother of all demos from Doug Engelbart back in the day in like the 60s, showing like video conferencing with collaborative screen sharing and stuff. And I think we've had the technology for quite a while, really, and it's become more of an issue of like our how we adopt it and how we choose to behave around the technology. You're talking about presence notification. I've heard too many stories of people in companies that get like an IM system, or even just using Skype or HipChat or whatever, and you have a presence on there, whether you're online or idle or do not disturb and all this, and too many people just like immediately go to like always away, and so you basically lose all the effect immediately because people are like put up these walls of they put up a block basically, or they don't want to participate. You lose all the benefit.
Yeah. Basically, leave me the fuck alone. And you're like, God damn it, man! Why aren't you never on? And he's just like, I don't want to be on. And they're my own brother, for Christ's sakes. I try to get him on iChat, and he doesn't want to get on iChat. And there's nothing I can do about it.
I mean, that's a great example, actually, right? Like, that comes FaceTime. When that first came out, everyone's like, oh boy, FaceTime, woo! Like, I want to get the new iPhone just so I can use that, and no one really uses it. It seems like.
That's true. You touched on a good point about the IM statuses. I'd love to comment on that. One of my co-founders, Matt, we were actually great friends. We grew up together and went to high school together. But he always gave me before we started working on Squiggle, he'd give me such a hard time because my Skype would always be set to away when I was there, whether I was not there, because I just couldn't handle. I couldn't keep track of it. It just did not work for me. Okay. And on the other hand, his was always on because he had it on his phone, but he would never respond to that, and he didn't know how to turn it off on his phone. So we could never get in touch with each other over Skype. It was such a nightmare. But that's kind of, and not vilifying Skype because it's just a product of like all of the text status messages, Yeah.
Right.
But that's kind of what you lose, exactly kind of what you were describing. It's what you lose when you live in a text-only environment. You can't actually see the people that you work with, and it does. Another point I'd like to make is that I was sitting in my apartment the other day and I just counted how many cameras are pointing at me or in some way like in my vicinity, and it was like 15 different cameras just sitting in my apartment when my friends were over. And I was like, I realized that going forward in the future, you're just going to have to be more mindful of whether or not you're on camera. You're going to have to look at the green light every time you do something in front of your computer you don't want someone to see. You're going to have to put tape over the camera. I mean, that's just how the future is going to be. And it's not, Squiggle isn't the one to blame for that. Squiggle's just, we're just seeing that. We want to use the hardware that's built into your computer, and that comes with certain privacy implications, but there are ways around that, especially if you're open-minded to it.
I think this emotional issue that because obviously technology is hardware, but the humans and the brains and all of our issues, of course, don't mesh with technology all the time. This is a big challenge for you guys. I imagine it's probably not going to go away. I'd love to see options where people do feel more comfortable. Maybe there's a way that you can put a pretty filter on your cam, so every time you turn it on, you're just like glowing lights. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's move on. Let's talk a little about the beginnings of your company. How long have you guys been around? I noticed on AngelList that you've gotten some funding. How'd that happen? Tell us more about that.
Sure. So we started building Squiggle in about February of this year, and we moved pretty fast with it. That's kind of, we wanted to get something out there as quick as humanly possible.
Okay.
So when Matt, Tom, and I first started working on it, we had a prototype within about 2 weeks in February, and it was a Flash prototype. Just because we were thinking about WebRTC, we weren't sure if it was ready, and we just wanted something that we could test.
Okay. So
we ended up going to the Launch Festival here in San Francisco, and we put up a demo, and we're just showing people kind of the interaction. We had a couple friends on it, and we were showing how it worked, and we just realized that Flash isn't going to give us the kind of level of quality that people are going to expect, especially like now, 2013.
And without geeking out too much, is this using the Stratus framework, the peer-to-peer, or is this something different?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard of Stratus, but it's built completely on WebRTC, so we're just building kind of the APIs on the APIs that are built into WebRTC.
Gotcha.
But so yeah, so we started naturally. I mean, you can tell we switched to WebRTC now, but we actually did that like within the first 3 weeks of building the product. We built the prototype in 2 weeks, and then we're like, we're not doing Flash anymore. We just saw the reaction to it, and the minute that people saw it was Flash, they were like, oh, you know.
Okay. All right.
Not to mention, Flash just doesn't have the kind of quality that WebRTC. Even back then, it didn't have the kind of quality that WebRTC did. So, you know, that was in February. We quickly pivoted and built a WebRTC prototype. Put it in the hands of some companies that we had personal relationships with, and just saw at that point it was kind of how I described it. Had the full frame video that was always on. Right. So we quickly learned that wasn't going to work. So we demoed it for a month or two, and then once we felt it was ready, we just launched a private beta, and we had a good list of signups. So we got a ton of great feedback from that, and then just a month after that we went into the public beta, and then we ended up starting charging about a month after that. So the whole thing has been about a six month process, and we've been able to make a ton of progress, and we've been pretty psyched about that.
Yeah, it's an incredible time span to accomplish all of that.
Yeah, that is a super tight frame here, man. So you had the beta up in a month or so. You had the early sort of deployment with friends of yours in different companies. At that point, you did the public beta, put it up on Beta List or other places.
Yeah.
Maybe you even got a TechCrunch article, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And did you start getting a lot of responses from people, and then how did you filter through, like, well, this is a good thing we should incorporate, this is more bullshit? I mean, how did you sort through, like, what you guys should be working on as opposed to not?
Well, it's a really good question. The way we approach, all three of the founders are all product designers, so the way we kind of approach the product design is we went the minimalistic route from the minimalistic route from the very beginning. It's tongue twister. But we, as you can see in the product, it's kind of reflective.
It's super nice. It's super clean. I love it. It's real minimal. Love that.
So, the idea was we came up with the MVP. We came up with what we thought after our beta testing. We came up with what we thought people would be willing to pay for, what they'd be able to deal with on the privacy area, and we wanted to kind of, we wanted to strip back kind of a feature set so that we can build on top of that, rather than coming up spending all this time on features that we're not sure people are going to need or use.
Yeah.
So, in the beta test, it was extremely great because the TechCrunch article got us a big influx of great beta testers and great quality. So, within the first month of the beta test, we got a ton of feedback from companies, and we let them just use it for free, so they just kind of went crazy on it,
right.
And gave us a ton of great feedback, and we kind of refined the user experience. There were some things they wanted that we just couldn't deliver on at that point. Screen sharing is something we still don't have, but we're going to have that in the next coming month or so. And a lot of it's just because WebRTC isn't there and Chrome isn't there, and there's a lot of limitations when you're kind of running on cutting-edge software.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's one thing. A lot of people have a lot of feature requests, and some of it's a little bit out of our control, but it's coming extremely soon.
Gotcha.
But, I think as long as, like, our core value proposition is there, which I think we've nailed that to some extent, as long as that's there, I think it's still, like, that's the core of the product, and that's what people are willing to pay for, I think. So, and I think we've kind of ironed that out pretty well.
Well, let's get into, like, obviously Google Hangouts has been around for a while. Why did you even want to build this knowing that there is a free version, Google Hangouts? Like, why would you even enter a market? I've asked this question to many other entrepreneurs. I'd like to hear your answer to this.
I mean, to be honest, we're not really even that worried about Google Hangouts. The main reason for that is that everyone who uses Squiggle came from Google Hangouts usually, or came from Skype or something else. The reason is they want this sense of presence. You don't get that with anything else. And Google Hangouts doesn't give you it. You can try. A lot of people have a Google Hangouts room with 10 or 15 people, and they leave it on all day. Right. And if anyone's ever tried that, it's a nightmare because Google Hangouts isn't built for that. Plus, it destroys your bandwidth, so it's not even a reasonable solution. And that's the problem that Squiggle solves. It gives you the real presence that you lose when you're working on a remote team. Obviously Google could go down that route if they wanted to, but every startup has to worry about Google, destroying them in a couple weeks because they can move so quickly if they really want to. So
right.
In that sense, everyone's a competitor with Google, and we don't think we're that much different in that department. So.
Gotcha. Well, great. I'm glad you guys are taking this on. So let's talk a little about your funding. If Jeff, you want to pull up the angel list. So obviously, you guys have got several people, several investors here. How did you approach these guys? What was the key sort of metric that they're looking at?
Mm-hmm. It's a really good question. Our involvement with AngelList is a little. We're kind of working on a secret product with them. It's actually, I guess it's kind of public now. It's called the Syndicate. They have a whole little help doc on it. But a lot more about that's going to come out in the next week or so, and I'll be able to say a lot more about it. But
Sure.
So a lot of these investors are kind of lumped under a syndicate, but then a lot of them, some of them are outside of that syndicate, and that's kind of how we got this nice rounded list of investors.
Okay.
But AngelList has been a huge facilitator for this. So we were able to get tons of intros through AngelList. We were trending on AngelList for about a month. So we had a good solid month of just meeting after meeting with really high quality investors, high quality people, and I think we ended up. I can't. Maybe next week we'll divulge like exactly the details of our round.
Okay.
But because it's pretty much closed now. But we ended up with a high quality group, and we're pretty happy.
Is it more than 500,000? Less than 500?
It's over $1 million, 1.1 million.
Wow. Holy
So from
cow.
a
Let me raise my cup to the raise.
Yeah, to funding, definitely.
Here's to that.
On the technical point on side though, how much does the bandwidth cost? Like when you guys are giving people free access to demo your product, or when you guys were just getting it started, how much of a consideration was the bandwidth for you? I mean, I know you're using WebRTC, which hopefully alleviates some of that.
Yeah, that's actually exactly that was one of the benefits to kind of switch into WebRTC. The built-in communication via P2P is great in WebRTC, even though it's early. It's still pretty solid. So everything that happens over Squiggle is P2P. So we don't actually have to pay for any of the bandwidth.
Beautiful.
But there's some limitations obviously with that. Once you get 4, 5, 6 people in a single call, you start to break down pretty intensely. So we actually limit the calls to 4 people per call, and that's a limit we'd like to get rid of in the next month or two. Basically going to a central server model where it's P2P, and then kind of once it's 3, 4, 5 people in the call, it switches to kind of a central server model. We'll have a little bit of bandwidth cost, but it won't be anything huge. We factor that into our pricing, and we'll make it work. So.
Very cool. You're basically just caching a bunch of these images, essentially.
Yeah, that's right.
Gotcha. Wow, very cool. What tips would you have for any startups founders that are listening to this in terms of trying to get trending on AngelList? Any suggestions?
Yeah, a couple suggestions. You're not going to go anywhere on AngelList unless you have a product.
Right. Gotta have a great product, obviously. Yep.
You got to have a product you got to have something up, even if it's just a private demo, but they have to be able to use it kind of independently on their own, kind of figure it out, and that's the best kind of way. You want them to just get it when they use it. Right. So that's one little piece of advice. I would also say, get to a paying customer as fast as you possibly can, even if it's like 5 or 10 paying customers, it doesn't matter. The fact that you can say you have paying customers just the bells start ringing in an investor's ear, especially on an angel.
Yeah, that's right. And I noticed they actually have that now as a tag. I think trending with paying or something in there.
Yeah, and because they're realizing like how important that is and how much it helps your startup stand out. Those were 2 of the key factors for us. And I would also say, don't be afraid to send a cold email. Send as many as you possibly can. Make sure you send them right though. Be personable. Be respectful of the person's time. A lot of them don't have time to read 2 or 3 paragraphs. Right. You got to keep that in mind, and make sure that you're complimentary and stuff like that. That's kind of how we went about it, and it worked really well.
Right. Yeah. Stroke the ego and make sure it's personal.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I got it. How many of these cold emails did you send? Was it like 5 or 10 a day, a couple hundred? What are we looking at?
I'm not sure the exact amount, but we weren't shy. There's no limit on that. I mean, some people are afraid that they're going to be imposing or whatever, but it's like, think of how many emails these people get a day. It's like, you're not imposing more than the next guy. It's called, that's hustling. So, and it works really well. So
I love it. Yeah. Jeff and I talk about this hustling, cold email stuff all the time.
Plus, when you have a product to show them, something that they can sink their teeth into, it's, not just some idea or,
Yeah, well, like I said, that's step 1. That, then paying customers, and then you really have a reason to be reaching out to these people. Don't reach out unless you have a reason. That's one really important thing that I've learned. If you don't have a reason to be reaching out, they're not going to have a reason to respond.
Yeah. So. No, that's great. Let's talk about this validation bit. So you had the beta up, you switched to WebRTC, you put up the the TechCrunch article comes out. At what point, a month later, did you start emailing your database, your customer database, and be like, all right, guys, hope you're loving this, but we got to start. I mean, how did you get the free to paid? How did that work out?
Well, one thing we did was, we grandfathered everyone into a $5 a month pricing plan, everyone who was involved in the beta.
Okay.
And that was in the TechCrunch article, so they were, well aware that they were going to be charged, but they were getting a discount. So that was a really, really good thing. I'm glad we did that. That worked out really well.
Wait. So you pre-planned this before the TechCrunch article was released. You're like, hold on, we need to make sure. Did you and your founders kind of do a little powwow together and figure this out?
And to be honest, I have no clue how we came up with that. I think it was a very last-minute thing.
That's great, because people hate it when you fucking start charging, and you're like, what the hell? I thought this was going to be free, and then you...
Yeah, you got to be kind of transparent about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, that's a really good point, actually, right there. We wanted from the get-go for people to know that we're going to be charging for this. We're building an enterprise business-level product, right, and we want people to pay for the value that we're giving them. Right. But that being said, one thing that we do is... we grandfather people into that $5 price point, and that's basically a thank you for, helping us through the beta, and we knew it was kind of challenging at times, but they stuck with it. But also, if a company doesn't find value out of it and they don't feel like they want to pay for it, but they still want to keep using the tool, which makes perfect sense because we're so young, right? We're just going to be lacking in a lot of areas for some companies. We gladly extend trials. I mean, as long as they need until they feel the value is there, we're completely open to that. And we've done it, probably 50
this
times
is
already.
Great. So you're saying, did you have like a little a page up that says, hey, thanks for being part of our beta, we're going to start charging you, and then maybe really small text, if you still don't want to pay, click here for feedback form, and then extend? Is that what you kind of did, or how did it look?
We did it a little more loose than that. We just kind of made a blog article kind of talking about how we're going to be charging, and how we specifically said in that blog post that we'll extend any trials or anything like that. We understand that the quality isn't there for some of you, and some of you need these features that aren't there and things like that. So every company has a different situation, and we wanted them to know that we're aware of that. Now, some companies have been getting value out of Squiggle from square one, and they were just praising it, right? And it was a perfect solution for them, and they were perfectly willing to pay for it. They went into it knowing they were going to be charged. I don't think we ever sent out an email that said, like, hey, heads up, we're going to be charging you, but we did put them all on a 2-week trial. So even though they had been using it free, we went ahead and launched the payments and started the 2-week trial for everyone. So they got emails telling them we're going to be charging in 2 weeks or so.
What was the conversion from that early beta to paying? Was it something like a 5%, 10%, more?
I'm actually not sure exactly what the percentage was, but naturally the product was pretty young. There were a lot of stability issues. There still are, but Chrome actually just came out with an update to Chrome 29, which fixed a lot of those, especially the echo cancellation.
Awesome.
But for a long time before that, the echo cancellation was a nightmare. Sometimes issues with calls dropping when you try to connect to somebody. So naturally we weren't expecting a super high conversion, but we had a revenue goal we wanted to hit kind of in the first month, and we did end up hitting that. So
awesome. Well, congrats on that, man.
Yeah.
Holy, this is a great story, Jeff. You guys are so young. You iterated so quickly. You've got money. You're sounds like you're hitting your revenue goals. What's the next 6 months year looking like for you guys?
Well, naturally, we basically just closed our round of funding, so we're going crazy, full steam ahead on the hiring front. So that's the next big goal, is to really craft a good team. Luckily, we're a naturally remote team, so we can hire anyone. We don't have to just hire in San Francisco or anything like that.
That's right.
We're open to hiring anyone, anytime.
I love that. So are you guys looking for hardcore backbone guys, WebRTC guys? What are you looking for right now? I'm just curious.
Right now we're looking, the first requirement is that they got to be crazy smart, smarter than us. But and the second, we have a couple different things. We're looking for a hardcore Rails full stack type of guy that can basically own the whole front end and back end. And our whole API is built in Rails, and that's kind of how we communicate between the web app and the native app.
Okay.
So we're looking for someone who can kind of own that. We're also looking for someone with experience with WebRTC. I kind of hinted at that central server model. Someone who can help hack away at that, because that's some pretty complicated stuff.
Right.
We also have some really great ideas for iOS. We'd love to get started on that ASAP. We have preliminary stuff there, but we need someone who can really own that. So.
All right,
Yeah,
so
this is
obviously
great. These are some challenging problems that engineers would be really enticed to go after, hopefully. And also, I hope your TechCrunch and other publicity is helping you attract some, great talent from around the world, or do you just hire in the U.S.? But either way, remote workers. Hopefully, you can find the best of the best that way.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually looking anywhere. We don't care if they're out of the country or whatever.
That's great.
But yeah, actually, one of the greatest resources has been AngelList. They have a ton of really good. They have a whole little hiring section. I think they're going to even put more eggs in that basket. I think. Okay. But it's a really great way to find quality people. And the whole system of intros that they have set up is there's room for improvement, but it's actually a really good start. And I would highly recommend anyone, if you're looking give AngelList a try, because they got really good quality on them.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
So obviously you're looking for engineering talent. Are you looking for any biz dev, designers, any of that kind of thing, or right now it's just the product engineering?
Well, the three of us founders are all product guys. Matt and I are both UI designers. Tom can do some UI design. We kind of range the whole gamut. And we've been kind of handling the hustling aspect ourselves, the marketing, and we're trying to keep it real. Right. Lean. We want to go the viral approach because we feel like it's that kind of product. Right. I mean, the way we got the TechCrunch article was by releasing a YouTube video of just a really rough demo. We just threw it together in an hour one night. Okay. And we got like thousands and thousands of views on that. It got picked up on Hacker News. We got a TechCrunch article out of it. We're wary of dumping a ton of money into marketing when we're able to get organic growth because it's such a great product and we know that. Mm-hmm.
Hold on a second, Eric. You just said something really important here. A lot of startups are looking for attention. How the hell did you get all these views on YouTube? I mean, give us some of the secret sauce behind the scenes. Did you just send out a bunch of emails, or how did that happen, really, honestly?
We put up the video and put it on Hacker News. That was it.
Gotcha. All right, Hacker News, that really worked.
Yeah.
I mean, if the quality's there, if it really is, I mean, at the end of the day, Squiggle is a really unique product. And there really is a spot in the market for this to own it. Right. And I think people just saw that. It's a tool that people really want, and they've been wanting for a long time. They're just not sure what they've been wanting. And when they saw it on YouTube and saw it on Hacker News, they just got all excited. The same way we did when we came up with the idea, And I think that's kind of why it kind of took off,
Yeah, absolutely. Back to the product real quick. I think that it can fundamentally serve like a lot of different types of businesses, but clearly you've got a bit of a focus with like software development teams and internet startup type companies. How do you keep yourself focused to not build too many of the features they want, like screen sharing? Or I think you have like code embeds in your chat. And you could probably go down that road forever. What kind of feature requests are you getting, and how are you managing that sort of product cycle?
Well, that's a solid question because it's something that comes up all the time. And we have kind of a philosophy of, you're going to get new feature requests every day, and we get tons and tons and tons. And a really good product designer, like the goal of a good product designer, is to kind of weed through that and find out what the real things are. Because a lot of people think they want this and think they want that, but really that's not the solution.
Exactly. Yeah.
Saying what pops in their head.
That's right.
So you got to be able to sift through that, and we've gotten down to a kind of core set of features that we know we need to implement. The privacy thing, we have some really cool ideas there. Naturally, people are like, "Oh, let me turn off my camera." We don't want you to turn off your camera, so we're not going to do that. Right. But we have it's our job to come up with more elegant ways to do that. So we have cool ideas that will work for those people, and it will make it a much better product for those people. So there's that, and then there's screen sharing is a huge, especially like since a lot of our publicity kind of started with TechCrunch and kind of went out from there, so it's more a technical crowd. So naturally, it's been proliferated more on those technical teams, and they need things like screen sharing. A lot of them talk about code, collaborative coding and stuff like that. I don't know if we'll have that anytime soon, but screen sharing has been a huge priority, and that's one feature that we know that people need it. We need it ourselves, and that's something we're going to have very soon. Drag and drop file uploading is something we've had on the radar for a long time, but we want to do it the right way, and the technology hasn't been there in the last few months to do it the way that we feel like we need to. But in the next coming months, there's been a lot of updates with WebRTC. Chrome has went through a lot of changes, so there's a lot of a more elegant solution we can come up with there, and so we'll have that in the next coming months as well.
Cool. And is this Chrome only right now?
Yeah, it's Chrome only, but we have we kind of packaged it into a native app as well, so you can use it on Mac, and you can use it on a PC if you have Chrome. So.
Oh, okay, excellent. Yeah, it kind of speaks to the power of your early adopters. That they're technical and they're willing to install Chrome, where often using something cutting edge like WebRTC removes all the corporate enterprise landscape. But there's obviously a huge demand for this. Looking at your pricing page, I can see you've got some great people using the product, and also your customers on your angel list. Wade from Zapier, we've had them on the show. Really great company to have on your list.
Yeah, Zapier is awesome. We went down to their office to meet Wade and see how they use Squiggle, and it was great because we went and had it, like, up on a big TV with all their remote employees on there. So they were using.
Yeah, tell us, how are some of these guys using it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so that's actually one use case, is that a lot of companies just leave it on a TV on the wall, and they hardly have any conversations. They just use it, but they just want to see the people that they work with.
Right.
And then you have other people who like Remind 101 is one of our customers, and they have some remote employees, and their remote employees just absolutely love it because they're always kind of like disconnected, and this is their kind of portal into what's really going on in the office. So a couple different use cases. Then there's the use case of everyone in the same office using it, which happens from time to time as well.
Gotcha. I want to get your feedback on this new announcement Google put out recently. The whole Hangouts help out. Have you seen that? Help out. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't. I can
Jeff,
pull it up.
why don't you pull that up?
Sure.
It looks like Google's trying to get into sort of services. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. Maybe they're building a directory and they're
Can you link me to
cut.
it?
Yeah, it says real help from people in real time, and it looks like it's built on the Hangout platform.
And if you see the slideshow, we've got a yoga instructor sort of teaching a student possibly, and earlier there was a recipe woman, and here's the guy trying to fix his gears on his.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of them look like they're mobile.
This is actually a really interesting idea because we've had a lot of people come to Squiggle and say, like, we want to use this for customer support, and I'm not sure if that's the exact angle that Google's going for here, but they want to be able to just have like a room where people can just click on a customer support rep and be able to talk to them.
Right.
Yeah. So I can see why there's definitely a need for something like that. But
yeah, man, I think this whole space is going to blow up, man. Mm-hmm. You guys are right in there, in the sweet spot of all this stuff. This whole presence and video conferencing and.
Yeah, we think so too.
Yeah. But it's interesting that these guys are getting into it. It'd be interesting to see how see what's going to develop out of this. So I just want to get your feedback. Well, we've had you on for a little bit here. I know you're a busy guy. Tell you what, Eric, do you have any last piece of advice for any founders out there struggling with their products, trying to get the shit together? Any suggestions?
Yeah, I'll reiterate something that I already said because it took me a long time to learn this lesson. Just build the damn thing. Build it in 2 weeks. Put it up and have people use it, and you'll see that destroys 3 months of trying to hustle when you don't have a product. Just build the damn thing and get it done. Rough. Cut the features out. Just build it.
Gotcha. And then send that email out to all your friends and be like, all right, let's see if this floats. Does it float? Gotcha. Very cool. Good advice.
It's really impressive, man. We really appreciate you, building Squiggle so quickly. It's a technical challenge too. It's not like it's not just another website or web app or something. You guys are actually building technology and offering cutting edge technology to people. I think it's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I really appreciate it, and yeah, I mean, we think so too, and we think there's a really big chance to kind of change the way that people work with this, and that's kind of the aspect. I mean, we don't want this to be a small thing; we want it to be a huge thing. So.
Yeah, this is really exciting.
Yeah, I love the fact that you guys are ignoring Google and just following your hearts and just making it happen. I love that. I love it. Absolutely. All right, well, cool. Well, thanks for coming on again, man. We'll check back in with you in a few months, see how you guys are doing. And next time you're here in Southern California, I'm in LA, Jeff's in San Diego. Definitely drop us a note.
Yeah, I definitely will. Thanks a lot for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah, it's our pleasure.
And last thing, if people want to get a hold of you or the company, is there a general contact, that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. Howdy@squiggle.com is the best way. It goes to an inbox that all the founders see, so it's the best way to get in touch with us. Or you can follow us on Twitter. It's @squiggling.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Sure.
Well, thanks again, Eric.
Yeah,
Talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.